Everyone knows the FIFA World Cup trophy. That golden figure, lifted in slow motion, confetti raining down, history being written in real time. But here's the thing. Most people only know what it looks like. So in this video, we are going beyond the surface. These are 12 facts you didn't know about the World Cup trophy. And trust me, some of these completely change how you look at football's most famous prize. We begin our journey not with the history, but with the extreme reality of the present. Fact number 12, the cost of absolute protection. You might assume that such a legendary artifact travels around the world like a superstar, surrounded by a private security detail and maybe a heavy-duty briefcase. But the reality is far more intense, and frankly, a bit unsettling. Because of the history of theft, which we will dive into later, the trophy is now treated with a level of security usually reserved for heads of state or nuclear codes. When the trophy travels, it doesn't just sit in a first-class seat. It is housed in a bespoke, specialized container that has been reinforced to withstand everything from extreme pressure to potential impact. But the protection goes deeper. There is a permanent, dedicated security detail assigned to the prize, and its movements are tracked by a closed-loop system that FIFA manages with ruthless efficiency. It is never, under any circumstances, left unattended. Not even for a second. The irony here is palpable. The trophy represents the pinnacle of sporting achievement, a symbol of freedom and glory for the winning nation, yet it is arguably the most imprisoned object in the world of sports. It lives its life in a state of high alert, locked away in Zurich when not on its carefully choreographed world tours. This level of security is not just about the gold and malachite. It is about the fact that FIFA knows better than anyone else. The trophy is a magnet for disaster. It is a prize that has been hidden under beds, stolen, ransomed, and reportedly melted down into nothingness. So, when you see it on the pitch, sparkling under the stadium lights, try to remember, that isn't just gold you are looking at. It is a survivor of a violent history, an object that has forced its owners to become paranoid jailers. But if the trophy is so heavily guarded, how does it manage to visit so many countries and interact with so many fans? The logistics are a feat of modern engineering and diplomatic maneuvering. It is a calculated gamble every time it leaves the vault. And as we continue our countdown, we will see that this obsession with security didn't come from nowhere. It was forged in the fires of near total loss. Our journey through these 12 facts is going to take us from the high-security vaults of Switzerland back to a dusty, quiet room in Italy during the darkest days of the 20th century. Are you ready to see how a simple showbox became the most important piece of footballing equipment in existence? Because the story of the trophy's survival is just getting started. And fact number 11 is going to show you how this golden icon became a globetrotter against all odds. If the previous block revealed the lengths to which FIFA goes to guard its most precious asset, the next question is obvious. If it's so dangerous for the trophy to be out, why does it travel at all? Fact number 11 is about the World Cup Trophy Tour, a logistical and diplomatic spectacle that is, in many ways, just as significant as the tournament itself. Imagine taking the world's most coveted, heavily insured, and history-laden piece of gold and sending it on a multi-continent pilgrimage. This isn't a simple trip from Zurich to the host nation. It is a massive, meticulously planned operation designed to build fever-pitch anticipation in every corner of the globe. From the bustling streets of Lagos to the neon-lit squares of Tokyo, the trophy becomes a physical manifestation of dreams for millions of fans who will never step foot in the host stadiums. The World Cup Trophy Tour is a beast of logistics. It involves moving the prize across dozens of countries in a matter of months, often hitting conflict zones, remote locations, and football-mad capitals within the same week. But behind the glitz of the fan events, there is a serious mission. It's a tool of soft power. For FIFA, the tour is the primary vehicle for ensuring that the global reach of the World Cup isn't just a marketing slogan, but a lived experience. When children in a rural town see the golden prize for the first time, it validates the entire mythos of the competition. It turns a television event into a tangible, physical reality. It tells the world that the trophy belongs to everyone, even if, at the end of the day, it's going back into a vault in Switzerland. However, The tour also presents a recurring nightmare for the security teams we mentioned earlier. Every stop is a potential security breach, a logistical challenge, and a race against time. The trophy is often flown on a private plane, branded specifically for the event, ensuring that it is visible, celebrated, and yet, paradoxically, never left alone. The personnel involved in the tour undergo background checks that would rival any intelligence agency. They are the silent guardians of the gold, the ones whose only job is to ensure that the global nomad reaches its next destination without a scratch or a story of tragedy following it. It's a high-stakes roadshow where the star of the show never speaks, yet commands the attention of millions. But here is where it gets interesting. The tour is also a masterclass in psychological manipulation of the sporting public. By taking the trophy out of the dark, secure vault and putting it on a pedestal in the middle of a city, FIFA creates a cycle of hunger. They remind every nation that they are within reach of the prize, even as they emphasize how untouchable it truly is. Fans are often kept behind barriers, able to photograph it, to scream at it, and to feel the aura of the history it represents, but they can never touch it. That boundary, that invisible, protected space between the fan and the gold, is exactly what makes the trophy so intoxicating. But as we peel back these layers of the trophy's public life, we have to go back to the beginning. We've established how it's protected and how it travels, but we haven't yet touched the roots of this golden madness. The 10th fact on our list takes us back to the very first design, a creation by a French sculptor that set the standard for everything that followed. It is a story of art, history, and a vision that was once just a sketch on paper. Are you ready to see where this golden obsession began? Because the original design was nothing like what we recognize today. It was a piece of art that belongs in a museum, far removed from the modern, commercialized prize we see in 2026. The archives are opening up, and the story of the very first trophy is about to unfold. Stay with us, because the history of this prize is far more complicated than the shine on its surface suggests. To understand the weight of the golden prize we see today, we have to strip away the modern imagery and travel back to 1930. Before the modern FIFA World Cup trophy, the one designed in 1974, the original looked way more classical, almost like something straight out of a museum. It was a design born from the artistic spirit of the time, crafted by French sculptor Abel Lafleur. Early on, it was simply called the Coupe du Monde, or the World Cup, and it carried a completely different vibe than the modern, dynamic trophy we recognize today. Instead of the two muscular figures lifting the globe into the air, Lafleur's design featured Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. She was depicted standing tall, draped in flowing robes, holding an octagonal cup high above her head with both hands. It was a statue of pure triumph, standing about 35 centimeters tall and weighing nearly 4 kilograms. But what truly set this design apart was its base, a deep blue, semi-precious stone called lapis lazuli, which gave it an elegance that felt almost royal. It wasn't just a sports trophy, it was a piece of high art, a sculpture that commanded respect because it looked like a relic from an ancient civilization rather than a modern commercial prize. This original design is vital because it established the trophy not just as a reward for the winner, but as an object of immense prestige. When the first teams arrived in Uruguay in 1930, they weren't just playing for the pride of their nation, they were playing for the right to hold this masterpiece. The statue of Nike became the face of the tournament for its first 9 editions, spanning from 1930 to 1970. It bore witness to the early rise of Uruguay, the dominance of Italy, and the birth of the legend of Pelé. Yet, there is a fragility to this early era. Because the trophy was a singular, hand-sculpted work of art, it was irreplaceable in a way that modern mass-produced trophies are not. It held a weight of history that we are still trying to recapture today. The connection to the Greek goddess of victory was intentional. It was meant to elevate football from a simple game into a pursuit of heroic excellence, mirroring the epic narratives of the ancient Olympic Games. But why was this specific vision so important to the foundations of FIFA? Because it wasn't just an accident. It was the brainchild of a visionary who saw the World Cup not just as a tournament, but as the crowning achievement of the sport. We have only scratched the surface of the man who pushed for this vision, a figure whose legacy is so deeply intertwined with the trophy that his name would eventually replace the very title of the cup itself. Our journey into the heart of this gold statue is revealing how much blood, sweat, and art are hidden in its history. Are you ready to meet the man whose passion turned a simple idea into the greatest global spectacle? The ninth fact on our list introduces us to the man who made the World Cup possible, and why the trophy became the ultimate tribute to his tireless crusade. Stay with us as we uncover the story of Jules Rimet, the man who built the stage for the greatest icons of the game. If you're not familiar with the name Jules Rimet, that's understandable. You might hear it occasionally in sports history books, but his influence is far deeper than a simple name drop. Without him, the World Cup quite literally does not exist in the form we recognize today. Rimet was the third president of FIFA, and he held that incredibly influential role for 33 years, a tenure that remains the longest in the organization's history, a testament to his sheer force of personality and his ability to navigate the complex, often fractured politics of international football during the early 20th century. But more importantly than his administrative longevity, Rimet was a visionary who refused to see football as a regional hobby. At a time when international football was confined to the boundaries of the Olympic Games, which strictly forbade professional players, Rimet pushed for something distinct, something larger, and something purely for the footballing world. It was a revolutionary idea that faced immense skepticism from the European powers of the time, who were perfectly content with the status quo. His persistence in lobbying nations, organizing logistics, and convincing a reluctant world to embrace his dream is what transformed the sport into a global phenomenon. That vision became a tangible reality in 1930, when the first ever World Cup was held in Uruguay. It wasn't the polished, multi-billion-dollar spectacle we see in 2026. It was a rough-around-the-edges, experimental tournament that could have easily failed had it not been for Rimet's absolute commitment. And because of how central he was to every single aspect of that dream, the trophy wasn't just a physical object, it became the ultimate tribute to his legacy. The original trophy, the one we discussed in the previous block with the Greek goddess Nike, was officially renamed the Jules Rimet Trophy in his honor. Every time a team lifted that specific cup from the 1946 tournament onward, they weren't just celebrating their tactical and physical victory, they were literally holding up the physical embodiment of Rimet's life's work. It was a rare, perhaps even unique, case where the prize of a tournament served as the permanent monument to the man who created it. But even with a trophy named in his honor and a legacy secured in the halls of FIFA, Jules Rimet could never have predicted the dark, twisting path his trophy would eventually take. We are moving from the era of the man who created the dream to the darkest hours that almost saw that dream destroyed forever. Fact number 8 is a story of war, shadows, and one man's desperate, secret attempt to save the trophy from the clutches of a collapsing world. How do you hide the most famous prize in sports when a continent is engulfed in flame? The answer is as quiet and unassuming as a simple cardboard box. We are about to dive into the period where the World Cup trophy went underground, literally and figuratively. Stick with us, because the trophy's journey through the chaos of World War II is the ultimate proof that some treasures are meant to survive even the most unforgiving of times. The tournaments in 1942 and 1946 were cancelled, and football, like most of global life, took a backseat as the world fell into the catastrophic chaos of World War II. But here's the wild part of the story that the history books often gloss over. The trophy itself nearly got caught up in that absolute destruction. At the time, the Jules Rimet Trophy was locked away in a bank vault in Rome, Italy, which was considered the safest place imaginable for a piece of gold that represented international unity. It sounds secure, doesn't it? A vault, a bank, a major European capital. But as the Nazi forces expanded across the continent and the occupation of Italy intensified, that safe vault became a death trap. There was a genuine, terrifying fear among the FIFA officials that the occupying forces would seize the trophy, not just because of the gold, but as a symbolic victory to strip from the footballing world. It was a time when everything from fine art to national treasures was being looted, erased, or melted down to fuel the war effort. Enter Ottorino Barassi, the vice president of FIFA at the time. Barassi was a man who understood that history is fragile, and he decided he was not going to let the symbol of the beautiful game disappear into the abyss of a dictator's collection. He didn't call for a tactical team or a secure armored transport. He went to the bank in secret, withdrew the trophy himself, and walked out into the streets of a war-torn city with the most important prize in sports tucked away under his coat. Where do you hide the soul of international football when the world is burning? Barassi didn't choose a secret military bunker or an underground cave. He hid it in the last place anyone would think to look, inside a simple showbox, tucked underneath his bed at home. No guards, no alarm systems, no high-tech security. Just one man relying on the hope that the last place a soldier would search for a priceless golden statuette was beneath the mattress of a bedroom. And somehow, against all odds, it worked. For years, while the rest of the world was engulfed in the deadliest conflict in human history, the World Cup trophy sat in the dark, silent corners of an Italian house, waiting for the smoke to clear and the game to return to life. This fact isn't just about the proximity to danger. It's about the sheer human audacity required to protect a dream when the world has stopped caring about dreams. But if the trophy survived the greatest war in history only to end up in a bedroom, what could possibly happen once peace returned? The trophy's life as a fugitive was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning to attract the kind of attention that no amount of hiding could prevent. The seventh fact on our list takes us into the heart of London, in a suburban garden, where the most famous prize in sports was saved by the most unlikely of detectives, a black and white mongrel dog named Pickles. You might think you know the story, but the aftermath of that heist, and the bizarre way FIFA tried to cover their tracks, is a piece of footballing lore that still has historians scratching their heads. We are moving from the shadows of war to the chaotic, mid-century streets of England. Are you ready to see how a household pet became the greatest guardian in the history of the World Cup? The archives are turning a new page, and the story only gets stranger from here. If the story of the trophy surviving World War II was a tense thriller, the 1966 heist in London was a high-stakes caper that felt like it was ripped straight out of a British crime novel. The Jules Rimet Trophy had made its way to England, the host nation for the 1966 tournament, months before the games were scheduled to begin. It was meant to be a moment of national pride, displayed at a public exhibition at Westminster Central Hall. But, in what can only be described as a catastrophic security lapse, the trophy vanished. The heist sent the British government into a state of panic. This wasn't just a piece of property, it was the symbol of the upcoming tournament that the world was watching. Thieves, showing an incredible level of audacity, actually contacted the Football Association, demanding a £15,000 ransom for the return of the prize. The world of football stopped. It was the ultimate nightmare for FIFA. How do you host a World Cup if your golden centerpiece is being held by a criminal organization in a back-alley deal? But 7 days later, the narrative took the most improbable turn in the history of sports memorabilia. A man named Dave Corbett was taking his white and black mongrel dog, Pickles, for a walk in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Upper Norwood, South London. Pickles, behaving with the curious instincts of a dog, began sniffing around the base of a garden hedge. Beneath the thick branches, he discovered a package wrapped tightly in old, crumpled newspaper. When Corbett tore it open, he didn't find trash. He found the soul of world football, discarded by a panicked thief who realized the heat was far too high to hold onto the goods. The return of the trophy through the nose of a dog became a global phenomenon. Pickles was instantly catapulted into stardom, receiving a lifetime supply of dog food and a massive reward for his owner. The English FA, however, learned a very painful lesson. They were so terrified of the original trophy disappearing again that they reportedly commissioned a secret replica to use for public events. FIFA, fiercely protective of their brand and their property, allegedly denied permission for this, but the replica lived on in shadows, appearing at events while the real deal was kept under lock and key. The saga of this replica is almost as mysterious as the original itself. It surfaced decades later in 1997 when it was auctioned off, and in a moment that still triggers conspiracy theories, FIFA itself won the auction, paying over £250,000 for a replica. Many skeptics at the time whispered that the price was so astronomical that FIFA was actually buying back the real stolen trophy under the guise of a replica to protect their own embarrassment. But Pickles and his garden discovery were just the beginning of the trophy's volatile relationship with its owners. The story of the Jules Rimet Trophy was heading toward its most tragic chapter yet. Fact number 6 brings us to the ultimate consequence of history, the moment when the possession of the trophy became a permanent, and then fatal, mistake. Brazil, having finally won the prize 3 times, earned the right to keep the original for eternity. But they would learn that holding on to history is much harder than winning it. Why did the most iconic trophy of the 20th century vanish in 1983, never to be seen again? The answer leads us to a dark display case in Rio de Janeiro and the heartbreaking reality of what happens when gold is mistaken for just another medal. Stay with us as we uncover the heist that broke the heart of a football-crazed nation. Once the Jules Rimet Trophy was permanently handed to Brazil in 1970, as they had become the first nation to win 3 World Cups, FIFA found themselves in a crisis of identity. They needed a new symbol, a new piece of gold that would represent the tournament's growth, its prestige, and its future. But this time, they weren't going to rely on a single sculptor's classic vision. They opened the doors to a global competition, inviting 53 different designs from 7 countries. The stakes were immense. They needed a design that could capture the kinetic energy, the athleticism, and the global unity that had become the hallmarks of the modern World Cup. After reviewing dozens of submissions, one stood out for its raw, dynamic ambition, the work of Italian artist Silvio Gazzaniga. Unlike the classical, statue-like figure of the goddess Nike, Gazzaniga's design was pure, abstract emotion. It depicted 2 human figures rising from the base, their arms outstretched to the sky, supporting the weight of the globe. It was a visual representation of the moment of triumph, the players rising up to meet the world, the sheer, uncontainable joy of lifting the globe above the earth. Standing 36.8 centimeters tall, crafted from 18-karat gold and featuring 2 layers of vibrant, green malachite at its base, the new FIFA World Cup trophy was born. The aesthetic shift from the Jules Rimet to Gazzaniga's creation was profound. While the old trophy felt like an artifact from antiquity, the new one felt like a modern masterpiece. It was heavier, more physical, and possessed a sense of movement that matched the faster pace of television-age football. As of recent estimates, the raw material value of the gold alone sits at over $150,000, though to the sporting world, the object itself is, quite literally, priceless. But beyond the gold and the stone, Gazzaniga's brilliance lay in his description of the work. He saw it as a moment frozen in time, a universal gesture that transcended language and culture. This trophy became more than just a prize. It became the definition of the modern World Cup. It is the object that every child dreams of holding, the finish line for the world's greatest athletes. But with this new, indestructible-looking icon came a new, far more restrictive set of rules. FIFA had learned their lesson the hard way. They had seen their history stolen, hidden, and lost, and they were determined never to let it happen again. They created a policy that would make the winner's ownership of the trophy a thing of the past. What happens when a team wins this golden masterpiece? They hold it, they celebrate with it, they lift it under a shower of golden confetti, but they don't take it home. The transition from the era of winning to keep to the era of winning to borrow is a shift that changed the way we view the trophy itself. Fact number 5 introduces us to the rule that broke the hearts of champions and transformed the World Cup into a perpetual cycle of desire. Why can you win the world but never keep the prize? And where does the real trophy go when the stadium lights go out? We are moving into the strictly guarded secrets of FIFA's vault in Zurich, a place where history is kept under constant, suffocating watch. The stakes are set, and the gold is locked away. Are you ready to learn why even the greatest champions of our time are forced to part ways with the prize they fought their whole lives to earn? The archive of secrets is closing in, and the rules of the game are about to become a lot more rigid. Just when you think this trophy story couldn't get any crazier, we have to talk about its final, tragic chapter. In 1970, Brazil won the World Cup for the 3rd time, led by the legendary Pelé. Under the original rules established by Jules Rimet himself, any nation that captured the title 3 times earned the right to keep the trophy in perpetuity. It was meant to be the ultimate honor for the most successful footballing nation on the planet. Brazil took the Jules Rimet Trophy home to Rio de Janeiro, where it was proudly displayed at the headquarters of the Brazilian Football Confederation in a display case with bulletproof glass. On paper, it was secure. It was protected. It was untouchable. But history, as we've learned, has a funny way of making a mockery of security. In December 1983, 13 years after the trophy had been gifted to Brazil, the unthinkable happened. Thieves broke into the headquarters in Rio. The security of the bulletproof display was a total failure. The thieves didn't need to break the glass or bypass complex laser grids. The back of the display cabinet was made of nothing more than simple wood. They forced it open with a basic crowbar, grabbed the prize, and walked out into the night with one of the most valuable cultural artifacts in sports history. It was a heist that lasted only a few minutes, but it sent shockwaves through the entire world. The pride of Brazilian football, the tangible representation of Pelé's golden era, was gone. The police investigation that followed was frantic and high-profile. 4 men were eventually caught, identified, and convicted for their roles in the robbery. Yet, while the perpetrators were brought to justice, the trophy itself remained a ghost. Despite years of searching, massive rewards, and international appeals, not a single piece of the Golden Goddess Nike was ever recovered. The most widely accepted, and frankly heartbreaking, theory is that the trophy was melted down almost immediately by the thieves to be sold as raw gold. To them, it wasn't history, it was just a payday. If that theory holds true, then the original World Cup trophy, the one that started it all in 1930, no longer exists in any form. It was sacrificed for the price of metal, a tragic end for an object that had survived wars and public exhibition thefts. The only surviving piece of the original prize is the blue, lapis lazuli base, which somehow wasn't destroyed and is now preserved at the FIFA headquarters in Zurich, a lonely reminder of what used to be. Brazil, devastated by the loss, eventually commissioned a replica in 1984 to present to their president, but it was a poor consolation for the loss of the original. The loss of the Jules Rimet Trophy fundamentally changed FIFA's approach to their hardware. It was the catalyst for the end of the Keep It Forever rule and the beginning of a new era of strict regulation. But every end has a beginning, and in the ashes of the Jules Rimet's loss, FIFA knew they had to create something entirely new, something that could withstand the scrutiny and the ambition of the modern game. Fact number 4 brings us to the birth of the current FIFA World Cup trophy. We are moving away from the tragedy of Rio de Janeiro to the creative process of Italian artist Silvio Gazzaniga, whose design from 1974 is the icon we recognize today. It was a complete departure from the classical style, a design that screamed modernity. Are you ready to see how 53 different designs were whittled down to the golden globe we know today? The archives are opening once more to show you the birth of the trophy that every player on Earth is currently fighting for. Back in the day, champions used to keep the original trophy until the next tournament cycle. That was the standard operating procedure throughout the Jules Rimet era. The winners were essentially the temporary custodians of footballing history. But after the catastrophic events of the 20th century, the near loss during the war, the humiliation of the 1966 theft in England, and the final, tragic disappearance of the original in Brazil, FIFA decided that the era of winning to keep had to end once and for all. They realized that the trophy was no longer just a piece of sports equipment. It was a global treasure, and they were, frankly, done with taking risks. Today, the rules are rigid, uncompromising, and designed to strip the physical possession of the trophy away from the winners the moment the confetti settles. When a team wins the final today, they get their moment of pure ecstasy. They lift the real, solid gold FIFA World Cup trophy on the pitch, under the bright lights, in front of the cameras, with the whole world watching. They get the photo that will live in history books forever. But that is where the possession ends. They do not take the real trophy home. Instead, once the celebration on the grass concludes and the team heads to the locker room, The real trophy is whisked away by FIFA officials and returned to the high-security vaults at the FIFA World Football Museum in Zurich, Switzerland. In its place, the winning nation is given a gold-plated replica, officially known as the FIFA World Cup Winners' Trophy. This replica looks almost identical to the original, but it is not made of solid, 18-karat gold like the one Silvio Gazzaniga designed. It is a high-quality souvenir, a stand-in for the real thing, allowed to travel to the winner's country to be displayed in their federation's halls. This rule change was the ultimate statement by FIFA. The trophy belongs to the organization, and by extension, to history itself, not to any single federation. It is a cold, calculated move, but one that has effectively ended the era of trophy fugitives and melted gold. When you see players holding the trophy today, you are seeing a brief, fleeting connection between the legends of the game and the prize they fought for, before the security team steps in to reclaim it. But even with such strict regulations, the trophy remains a subject of intense scientific and physical curiosity. We've covered the history, the law, and the security, but what about the object itself? Why doesn't it weigh 70 kilograms? Why can players lift it with such ease? The second fact on our list delves into the engineering marvel that makes the World Cup trophy the ultimate tool for celebration. It's a secret hidden in plain sight, a detail of design that allows for those iconic shots of legends hoisting the gold high above their heads without straining a muscle. We are moving from the rules of possession to the secrets of physics. Are you ready to learn why the most famous golden globe in the world is actually a hollow masterpiece? The countdown is getting closer to the final reveal, and the next fact will change how you look at every celebration from here on out. When you see the champion standing on that podium, drenched in golden glory, eyes wet with tears, you are witnessing the absolute peak of a player's career. They reach out, their hands trembling, and finally grasp the cold, heavy metal of the FIFA World Cup trophy. It is the ultimate prize for the ultimate test. But there is a cruel, hidden reality behind that iconic photo that most fans don't realize. The moment the cameras stop flashing and the team retreats to the sanctity of the locker room, that trophy is taken away. They are the champions, but they are not the owners. The days of winning to keep are buried in the history books alongside the Jules Rimet trophy. This rule change was not born out of spite. It was born out of survival. FIFA learned the hardest lesson possible after the 1983 heist in Brazil. They realized that placing one of the most culturally significant and valuable objects on Earth into the hands of a national federation, regardless of how secure they claimed to be, was a gamble they could no longer afford. So, the new regulations are as clear as they are unforgiving. The real, 18-karat gold FIFA World Cup trophy remains the perpetual property of FIFA. It is the only prize in sports that you are allowed to borrow for a few minutes of history before it is reclaimed by its rightful, institutional guardian. Instead of the original, the winning nation is presented with a gold-plated replica, officially known as the FIFA World Cup Winners' Trophy. It looks the part, it shines under the stadium lights, it feels substantial in the hand, and for the fans and the players, it serves its purpose perfectly. But there is a fundamental difference in its composition. While it is a beautiful piece of craftsmanship, it is not the solid gold, malachite-based monument that was meticulously sculpted by Silvio Gazzaniga. The real trophy returns to the high-security, climate-controlled vault at the FIFA World Football Museum in Zurich, Switzerland, where it sits under constant, silent surveillance, protected by a level of technology and security that ensures no crowbar-wielding thief will ever get close to it again. This reality creates a fascinating psychological gap between the achievement and the souvenir. When a team wins, they have the title for 4 years, but the physical trophy that represents that history is held in trust by the game's governing body. It transforms the winners into temporary stewards rather than permanent owners. It is a brilliant, if slightly cold, strategy to maintain the sanctity of the prize. Every 4 years, the trophy is brought back into the light, reunited with the world, and then returned to the dark to wait for the next set of kings to hold it for their fleeting moment in the sun. But even with such strict control, the physical design itself holds secrets that would surprise even the most dedicated football fan. We have talked about the rules, but what about the actual, physical construction? Why are players able to lift a heavy-looking, solid gold statue with one hand? And why does the trophy look like it's defying gravity? The second fact on our list takes us into the science of the sculpture itself. We are moving from the rules of possession to the secrets of engineering. Are you ready to learn why the most famous golden globe in the world is actually a hollow masterpiece? The archives are opening once more to show you how physics played a role in making the World Cup celebration possible. Stay with us, because the truth about the weight of gold will change how you view every lift, every shake, and every victory pose. The countdown is reaching its final, breathless conclusion, and the last few secrets are the most revealing of all. When you see the winners standing on that podium, drenched in golden glory, eyes wet with tears, you are witnessing the absolute peak of a player's career. They reach out, their hands trembling, and finally grasp the cold, heavy metal of the FIFA World Cup trophy. It is the ultimate prize for the ultimate test. But there is a hidden reality behind that iconic photo that most fans don't realize. The object they are lifting is a masterclass in deception and physics. You've seen the images 1,000 times. A captain hoisting the trophy high above their head, shaking it toward the crowd, sometimes even passing it from hand to hand as if it were a basketball. It looks solid, it looks dense, and by all accounts of its size and the precious metal used, it should be an absolute beast of a weight. If the FIFA World Cup trophy were truly a solid block of 18-karat gold, the math simply wouldn't work for the celebration we know and love. According to experts, including Professor Martin Polyakov, if the trophy were completely solid, it would weigh an impossible 70 to 80 kilograms, roughly the weight of a fully grown, athletic adult. Imagine that for a second. Imagine a player, already exhausted from 120 minutes of high-intensity football, trying to hoist 70 kilos of gold above their head while jumping, running, and screaming. It would be a recipe for a medical emergency, not a celebration. The sheer physical strain would be enormous, and the risk of the trophy slipping or causing an injury during the chaotic, emotional lifting ceremony would be a nightmare for FIFA's insurance adjusters. This is where the genius of Silvio Gazzaniga's design really shines. The trophy is, in fact, hollow. By keeping the interior of the golden globe and the two human figures empty, the engineers were able to bring the total weight of the trophy down to just over 6 kilograms. That 6-kilo weight is the Goldilocks zone. It is heavy enough to feel premium, substantial, and truly expensive in the hands of the winners, but light enough to be hoisted, shaken, and carried around the pitch for an hour of pure, unbridled celebration. This engineering choice is one of the most underrated secrets of the sport. It proves that the World Cup trophy isn't just an art piece. It's a tool designed for a specific human function. It was created to be held, to be kissed, and to be lifted in the face of the world. If it had been designed as a solid statue, the iconic image of the trophy lift might never have become the global standard, simply because no human being could consistently hold it aloft with the grace and enthusiasm that the winners do today. But now, as we reach the final step in our journey through the archives, we have to address a looming, logistical reality. If the trophy is a finite piece of metal with a fixed base, what happens when it is no longer physically possible to write history on it? Fact number 1 brings us to the final, existential question of the World Cup. The base is running out of space. Since 1974, every single winner has had their name engraved on the bottom, but the math is catching up to the myth. There are only a few spots left for the champions of the future. What will FIFA do when the gold runs out of room? Are they going to resize the base, or are we witnessing the final years of the design as we know it? The final chapter of our series is about the ticking clock of footballing legacy, and you won't want to miss the conclusion. We have reached the summit of our archive, the final secret that concerns the physical destiny of the FIFA World Cup trophy itself. Since 1974, every single winning nation has had its name and the year of its triumph engraved on the base of the golden statue. It is a tradition that connects the modern champions to the legends of the past. From West Germany in 1974 to the most recent victors, each name is etched into the green malachite band, creating a permanent, physical lineage of greatness. But there is a silent, logistical crisis happening right in front of us that few people have considered. the base is literally running out of space. Based on the current size of the engravings and the layout of the trophy's base, there are only a handful of slots left for future champions. We are looking at a finite timeline for the design as we know it. Once those final remaining spots are filled, FIFA will face a historic, unprecedented decision. They cannot simply keep adding names indefinitely without compromising the integrity of the design or making the engravings so small they become illegible. This raises the question, what comes next for the most iconic prize in the world? Will they redesign the base to accommodate more history, effectively stretching the trophy's lifespan? Will they decide to retire this version of the prize and introduce an entirely new iteration of the World Cup trophy for the next century of football? Or perhaps they will choose to move the names elsewhere, altering the very identity of the object that has become synonymous with the tournament itself? This is the final secret. The trophy is not just an object, it is a document. And that document is reaching its final page. As we look toward 2030, 2034, and beyond, the teams competing today aren't just playing for the glory of the moment. They are competing for one of the final remaining spots on the most famous base in sports history. This realization adds a layer of desperation and permanence to the tournament that is hard to quantify. It reminds us that every legend has a story, and every era has an end. The Jules Rimet Trophy vanished into history. The current FIFA World Cup trophy, while secure, is nearing its own mechanical endpoint. It is a humbling reminder that even the greatest symbols of sport are subject to the relentless, ticking clock of time. This concludes our deep dive into the 12 secrets of the World Cup trophy. We've traveled from the classical artistry of Nike to the high-tech, vault-protected gold of today. We hope this journey through the football archive has given you a new perspective on the history of the game. If you love football and want to truly understand the stories behind the stats, subscribe to the Football Archive and never miss a chapter. Every legend has a story the highlights never show, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive into the moments that defined our sport. Catch you in the next one. Bye.